There's nothing wrong with creativity. In fact, in a world today of AI slop, creativity is something we should embrace. The same applies to the world of railway locomotives. There were so many engines that were built with unique looks, purposes, power types, you name it, someone built it. Whilst many lived to see long lives covering hundreds of thousands of miles, sometimes even millions of miles, there were some that just didn't, and unfortunately never got to see a true working life. Today, let's look at one of these unfortunate cases. An engine that admittedly looked very stylish and sophisticated for the time, but unfortunately never was given the chance in the limelight. Today, let's look into the case of the unique LNER EE1, the express electric locomotive with an unlucky number and an unlucky life. Our story begins in 1919. At the time, the North Eastern Railway was planning for a faster railway connection between Newcastle and York, along their part of the East Coast Main Line. At this time, it wasn't electrified unlike today. However, the chief mechanical engineer of the time, Sir Vincent Raven, was a big believer in electrification and the future, and had an idea to have the line electrified. This wasn't new technology for the North Eastern Railway, as they had seen some electrification prior, with the ES1s and EF1s working smaller, more contained lines which they specialised at, the EF1s also being Raven designs. This time, however, it was going to be on a much grander scale, as electrifying part of the East Coast Main Line was going to be tough. Firstly, getting approval to do it in the first place, and secondly, deciding what's going to run on it. Thankfully, the success of the Shildon to Newport line gave Raven the push he needed to consider going bigger, and as such, the plan was put in place. Then came the question, what would run on it? Raven had designed other electric locomotives in the past, however they wouldn't have been powerful to cope with the fast passenger trains like those needed on the East Coast Main Line. As such, he needed something bigger and something stronger. Designs came and went. However, this ultimately led to the creation of a huge 464 electric locomotive. It was never named, but was always referred to as the EE1, standing for Electric Express Number 1. This follows other classification schemes of the Northeastern Electrics, with the 2 electric shunter locomotives, the 10 electric freight locomotives, and the later modified prototypical electric banker. As the name implies, it was built to haul fast express trains along the proposed electrified line. It was built with 6 motors that could churn out 300 horsepower each, which drove each of the 6 driving wheels, which came to 6 foot 8 in diameter, the same as the later LNER A1s. The electrical equipment came from Metropolitan Vickers, with the LNER Encyclopedia claiming that the engine needed to reach 65 miles an hour hauling 14 coaches on straight and level track. If it couldn't do it, it wouldn't be suitable. Work on the locomotive progressed quite swiftly, and finally, in 1922, it left the works ready to begin its trials. Ultimately, it cost £27,000 and admittedly looked pretty sophisticated for the time. It looked very bulky, yes, but sleek as well, with the proportions leading to a very unique design that the UK hadn't really seen before. Following on from the numbering of other NER electrics, it was given the number 13, perhaps almost fitting for it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The locomotive was then towed for testing at the Shildon to Newport line, which was electrified at the time for heavy coal traffic. Now we know that it did conduct these trials, but the results of said trials have never been made to the public. At least, I couldn't find anything, and the LNER Encyclopedia also claimed this as well. Whilst never being made public, the fact that it had so little modifications made to it after the trials can suggest that it was capable of the work given, and possibly just ready to begin its working life. Speaking of, now that we've covered all the specifications, let's discuss the working life of this engine. It didn't have a working life. Right, so this story is already cut short because, for as sleek as it was, the EE1 never actually worked. Why? Well, remember that proposed electrical line it was built for? Well, simply put, the proposition never went through. The engine was built in 1922, with the trials taking place soon after, and the following year, the grouping happened. The grouping led to all the railway companies at the time coming under 4 larger companies, with the North Eastern Railway being absorbed into the London and North Eastern Railway. As such, priorities shifted, Raven stepped down as Chief Mechanical Engineer, and the electrified line was just cancelled right there and then. The EE1 was built specifically for this purpose in mind, but with the line now cancelled, the LNER was just left with a brand new £20,000 electric locomotive with nowhere to work. Now you may be thinking that it possibly could have worked on the already existing electrified lines that the LNER absorbed, and yes, it could have, but keep in mind that compared to the other electric locomotives they absorbed, the EE1 was much bigger, designed for fast passenger trains at 65 miles an hour. It just wasn't suitable for slower suburban passenger routes, and it wasn't even worth the effort to consider it for shunting duties. As such, it just sat there, unused. But interestingly, the locomotive wasn't scrapped right away, nor was it ever officially condemned. In fact, it would remain in the LNER's paint shop at Darlington, seemingly on the off chance it would see work again. In 1925, it was used in the Stockton and Darlington centenary celebrations, being used in a cavalcade railway display. As this line was electrified, it had to be towed to take part. The engine towing it was J71 number 1163, which you can see in this video taking part in the celebrations. So even though it had never worked prior, the LNER were keen to show it on display to the public. Perhaps the first and last time many people would have seen this magnificent beast. Outside of that though, it just remained in storage, with the LNER seemingly reluctant to withdraw it. It was still classified as the EE1 and numbered 13 up until the LNER's renumbering scheme under Edward Thompson, which saw the locomotive being renumbered to 6999 in 1946. It would also later be renumbered on the British Railways to 26600. It seemed to have a soft spot amongst the LNER, with neither Gresley, Thompson, nor Peppercorn disposing of it. It even survived the war, where older surplus locomotives were being condemned and scrapped to help gather material supplies for existing functional locomotives. Whatever they saw in it must have been something special. This makes me think that even though the trial results were never published, it was a successful design. Why would they keep a prototype for so long if it was subpar? Especially given how other prototypes, such as the Hush Hush, saw radical transformations to just stay in service. Unfortunately, British Railways didn't share the same sentiment to it as the LNER did, and weren't too keen on keeping it around any longer. As such, in 1950, it was officially withdrawn from service. I say service very loosely here. And it was officially disposed of, bringing an end to a locomotive whose life had never really began. It's a shame really. This locomotive was designed to be a prototype under a scheme that would have seen radical shifts in the railways at the time. I mean, the East Coast Main Line wouldn't see any form of electrification up until 1976 when the first phase began. Had Raven's plan gone ahead, we probably could have seen a fully or at least partially electrified East Coast Main Line way before that. Maybe the EE1 wouldn't have been a one-off, but a class pioneer. Maybe British Railways could have found future use for them on the famous Woodhead route. But this is a bunch of what-ifs to a reality that unfortunately led this brand new machine to a life of storage. Being out and moved a couple of times, and then ultimately being scrapped before it could haul its first train. The story of the EE1 is both unlucky but equally remarkable. It's remarkable that it existed at all. It's remarkable that it had such high hopes behind it. And to me, the most remarkable thing about it is that it existed for as long as it did out of use. And that alone has cemented this weird oddity into the minds and hearts of many railway enthusiasts, myself included, hence why I made this video in the first place.